He's got an opinion. News4JAX political analyst and director of JU's Public Policy Institute, Rick Mullaney, now joins us here on the morning show. Rick, I guess one of the big questions is, did James Comey live up to the hype?
Well, in some ways, yes, and maybe in some ways, no. Yesterday's testimony was dramatic. It was significant. I don't think in the end it was a game changer. I think it's viewed through partisan lenses. If you're from the left, you viewed it as devastating. If you're from the right, you viewed it as vindication. I don't think it was either. Earlier in the week, Chuck Todd said this would be blockbuster. Charles Krauthammer said it would be a non-event. I think it fell somewhere in between. The nation was watching, very significant. The real key is Mueller, not James Comey.
All right, but James Comey did raise the possibility of obstruction, though he said it was not for him to decide. He also said that the president lied. Did he make a viable case for obstruction?
Let me say this. I think James Comey's testimony as a whole yesterday was very damaging to the president in many, many ways. But I'll say this as a former prosecutor. When I take a look at these facts, I don't think one of those ways was obstruction of justice from a legal standpoint. To borrow James Comey's words, paraphrasing, I don't think there are too many reasonable prosecutors that believe there's a reasonable probability of conviction of obstruction of justice based on the facts that came out yesterday. There would have to be more. I don't think that's a viable case for obstruction of justice from a legal standpoint.
And I'll ask you about that when I ask what's next a little later on in this interview. The president quick to react this morning, although he did hold his Twitter until about half an hour ago. This is what he said, despite so many false statements and lies, total and complete vindication, and wow, Comey is a leaker. Vindication?
Far from total vindication. There are some things the president can point to that he can be pleased with. James Comey did confirm that on 3 separate occasions, James Comey told the president he was not the subject of investigation. There were other things the president could point to. But remember, too, we've heard James Comey's version. We've yet to hear the version of the president, which may be very, very different. But yesterday was far from vindication for the president. The good news for the president is that his Republican base is hanging with him, and that's very big news if you're President Trump.
Now, some people are hanging on the fact that James Comey admitted to leaking a memo. Number one, he probably had to, because if it came out later, it would undermine his credibility. Number two, the question has arisen, is what he did illegal? The president's attorney said there should be an investigation. Other legal experts say, no, nothing illegal here.
Well, let me say this as someone who worked at City Hall for 20 years. I know very well that when you create documents in the course and scope of your employment, those are not your personal notes. And for James Comey himself to go as the FBI director, in his capacity of FBI director, and to meet with the president at the White House in his capacity as president, and to formalize that in writing, to suggest that that's a diary is inaccurate. So I think you're going to see more about this. This has to be looked at. Those documents are part of governmental documents. They're going to get produced. So I think there's more to come out regarding how those documents are to be handled.
Was it really a diary? Because he basically sat back and said, you know what? I was a little suspect about the conversation, and I wanted to make sure that I remembered it accurately.
Yeah, I use that sort of loosely to sort of teasing that he made it seem as more personal than work product. I view it as work product, and in most litigation, it would be considered work product. Again, in his role as the FBI director at the White House, capacity of the president, trying to formalize what that conversation was with the president, I believe that's work product. I believe those notes belong to the FBI, and so I think we'll hear more about that in the future.
And in 3 words, what's next?
Take a look for the hearings coming up next week. But if you want 3 words, I would say Mueller, Mueller, Mueller. That is going to be the key. Yesterday was a piece of a much bigger picture. Keep your eye on the special counsel.
I kind of knew what you were going to answer to that question, Rick. Thank you. To revisit this interview, hear Rick's interpretation of the events, and give it some context and perspective, go to the morning show page of news4jax.com. After about 10:30, 11 o'clock this morning, it'll be posted in the video section. Plus, for complete coverage of the Comey testimony, look on the homepage. There's a breakdown of the 10 big moments and reaction from both sides. Jen?